Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Wednesday, November 6, 2019. It looks like I have figured out what's been going on with my recording software. Got the webcam back. Hello, everybody. And I think it has to do with one of the microphones I was using. It was a very expensive microphone, the one that I used for my narration that I did on my documentary last year, or this year, for last year. And something about the drivers were not as compatible after a Windows update recently. I mean, I tell you what, it's just nuts sometimes. So I'm using this little cheaper boom microphone that, it does okay. So anyway, it's good to be back. Hi, everybody. And now it's time for today's update. Not a lot going on in the tropics, especially in the Western Hemisphere, as you'd imagine this time of year. Instead, it's over here in the West Pac. With a typhoon, very strong typhoon, a tropical storm here just to the west of the Philippines, and a tropical storm over here in the far northern Indian Ocean. All of these, interesting systems. This one won't impact anybody directly, but this system here, this tropical storm, headed in towards parts of Southeast Asia. As you can see, there's to the west of the Philippines, and it'll move in, not very strong, be a big rainmaker here. And that's about it. This other tropical storm, Maha, up here in the northern Indian Ocean, just going to kind of mill around and not do much either. So, low impact all around. That's good. It's been a very busy season around the globe in terms of impacts. Big year for impacts, especially with Dorian. And we had that typhoon that affected Japan recently. And it's good to see that the tropics will be calming down, as you would expect, at least for the northern hemisphere. Then we'll watch and see what we have in terms of southern hemisphere action over the next few months. But it's still hurricane season, still tropical cyclone season, and we will still be on the lookout, just in case something does pop up. Any candidates for that anytime soon? Not really. There's a little bit of energy down here along the northwest coast of South America, some vorticity down there. But you notice that the deep tropics here really null and void of any areas of energy, vorticity. It's all up here in the northern latitudes, which you would expect. So nothing coalescing, coming together anytime soon. And that is also easily verified looking at the satellite imagery. Just one little area of convective activity to the north of Panama and Costa Rica. Otherwise, high level and very high velocity. Upper-level winds extending all the way across the deep tropics here, up in the mid-latitudes as well, typical of November, despite the very warm sea surface temperatures all throughout this region, Caribbean and Gulf included. I showed that yesterday. We will look at sea surface temperatures and the anomalies, departures from normal, about once per week. So we'll revisit that probably this coming Monday or Tuesday, something like that. I haven't quite figured out what my schedule is going to be over the next few weeks, but I'm working on it. I got a lot of other projects coming up. Our podcast is going to be starting in December. This new television type series, web series, whatever, working on that. And so with the tropics calming down, at least I'll have time to do all of that. All right, so just a quick scan here of what the GFS shows. This is the wide shot of the Atlantic Basin. And here's the west coast of Africa, east coast of North America, once again, just to get your bearings. Large, sprawling area of high pressure dominates most of the Atlantic now. I mean, look at that. That thing is massive. Very, very large area of high pressure. If it was hurricane season, well, it is. I mean, the height of it. And we had, systems trying to get across. They would do a pretty good job until they got about over to here. And then there's a weakness there that they would turn out. But it's not the height of hurricane season. It's November, early part of November, and things are starting to wind down. That being said, there might be, as we scroll through here, there's 24, 48, 72, 96, 120. So by day 5, this starts to get my attention right down here, this little area. It's just showing up now. Again, day 5, okay. We'll see just a little area of vorticity. Advance this on out to day 6. Kind of still there through day 7. It just kind of percolates in that area out past day 8. We'll see. Very doubtful that something would try to pop up there. But we'll watch. I don't know why I just, oops. I don't know what I did. I have screwed something up there. That's fine. There it is. Trying to draw a circle. So we'll watch. We'll see. It's so late in the season that I doubt anything would develop that far east in the open tropical Atlantic. It does try, though, if you just keep this on, out into time. We're talking more than 10 days out. What does it come from? It looks like a little bit of vorticity. Some energy kind of streams in out here from low latitudes, feeds into this system. Whatever. We'll watch and see. It would be a novelty and nothing more. Just like, whoa, that's interesting. Maybe the 18th named storm of the year. But you notice there's nothing developing over in the Western Caribbean, which is the normal hot spot, if you want to call it that, for this time of year. No vorticity coalescing over there. So there you go. So the focus will be, going forward, cold air. And if we look at this nice animation here, this is, I found this on Twitter, a retweet here from Yakov. I follow Yakov on Twitter, a great meteorologist over there from Israel. And I like his retweets because I get to kind of see a nice consensus of what people are saying without having to necessarily follow dozens of people. I figure if Yakov thinks it's important enough to retweet it, it's good enough for me. It's cheating a little bit, but I don't need to be following 500 people. You ever get that? Somebody will follow you, and you're like, oh, cool, somebody is following me. And you go back and you look, and they're following like 30,000 people. Like, what is up with that? Anyhow, I digress. So what was Yakov retweeting? Well, he's talking about this big blast of cold air, at least his retweet, heading down with a reinforcing shot behind that, and we can see that in this animation here from the Euro here, the EPS, the Ensemble Prediction System. And it is generally, what should I use here? We'll use black. Warm out west with the ridge out there, and cold east of the Rockies over here with the big trough. And these reinforcing chunks of Arctic air will be coming out down into the lower 48, spilling all the way down into the Gulf. Some of them trying to make it down to South Florida. And if you've been following Brian McNulty, another great follow on Twitter, he's been talking about how hot it has been down there. There will be some relief. These are anomalies here, temperature anomalies from the ensemble mean, right? It's like all the different models, you know what ensembles are by now, right? And you take the average, that's the mean. So South Florida staying warm. Everywhere else east of the Rockies, record-setting cold in some places, and with it, the possibility, I'm seeing it starting to show up on weather Twitter and elsewhere, of storms, East Coast storm action coming up. So if you look at the GFS from this morning's run, the 12Z run, surface map here, there's the first front that comes down. And let's get over here and use this guy. I like black. So there's the first frontal boundary that comes down. Very low heights behind it, heights high out in the west. That's just meteorological terms for, ridge in the west, trough in the east. And it's going to be cold after this weekend in the east. The front clears the coast, and high pressure settling in, surface high of about 1029 millibars. And then you keep going on out, 5 days out, the makings of an interesting storm system now shaping up in the nation's midsection. All right, so more Arctic air, 1048 millibar high, large chunk of Arctic air bounded by the Rockies on the west side, and pretty much no bounds on the east side. It's going to spill into the lower 48, and things are going to get cold and potentially quite stormy. So there you go. You see the northern edge of it. Yep, blue is snow, frozen precip, the whatever color that is in there, pinks or whatever. Magentas, a mixed bag, and this is the color code, of course, that's set up by Levi Cowan at Tropical Tidbits. And a low-pressure area tries to develop along the northern Gulf Coast. Very cold air drains all the way down into Texas here. Very strong north winds. Yep, Houston's going to be cold. Baton Rouge, New Orleans, all the way down to South Padre. Cold, it's coming. You knew it was only going to be a matter of time, right? You can't escape it. The global warming has not completely taken over yet. So, you got to have winter at some point. So this is interesting. We're out at about a week's time, out about a week. Pretty strong, solid surface high up here over Canada. Little coastal low. Some of the modeling indicating maybe more of a reflection off of New England, and this is where it starts. Will this come together and be a significant coastal storm? I don't know. This is just like watching hurricanes. And you say, well, it's a week away, we'll see what happens. It is something to monitor. We know that there will be a large, sprawling, dense area of cold high pressure. So the cold air will be in place. Ample moisture will be overrunning that, coming up out of the Gulf, available over the western Atlantic as well. Now it's just a matter of, does the jet stream from the northern branch and the southern branch get together? In other words, does the energy sort of bundle in a different way than we see tropical cyclones do it and give us the wintertime, or in this case, fall equivalent of, a hurricane's cousin, its offspring, if you will. Well, whatever. Obviously, these extratropical storms are not hurricanes, but they're similar. You get strong coastal wind, storm surge flooding, but this is all spread out here. All of this energy spread out over a large area, not focusing, so, impactful, but not overly so. So we'll see. So I've got my eyes on it. That's about a week out, and we'll see. Like I said, I'm interested in and available now, thanks to our support that we've got, to be able to go and study these events in person. It's just a matter of, will it be up here along the New England coast? Will we get a big storm out over the plains? One of those big high plains blizzards? We shall see. But the cold air is coming, and that leads me into this. I saw some talk about this on Twitter, and this will be another focus of mine going into next spring. The Central Region National Weather Service issuing their flood outlook, and it didn't get the coverage perhaps that it should have, but the spring flood season this year was incredible, absolutely devastating to the farmers out there in the Midwest, Nebraska, up in the Dakotas, and elsewhere, all the way down into portions of Kansas, and spreading east from there, Iowa. There was some of it in the news, and then it kind of went away. But the flooding is still there, believe it or not. Those rivers and the widespread flooding in some areas never abated completely. And what's going to happen is all of this cold air is going to set in, and it's going to freeze all of that. And you're going to get these ground temperatures that go below freezing. And there's a quote in here in this report where they mention that it's kind of like freezing a sponge, and then you thaw it out, but you pour water on top of it. That's a great analogy. That's a great way to look at it. So as we go forward, we really need to be watching this closely through the winter in terms of how much precip we get in terms of snowfall. So this is going to be very important. And we're talking about generally up in this region here, how much snowfall do we get? Last year, the storm track was generally right up the middle here. These storms would come out of the Pacific, one way or the other, and instead of going across and going up the East Coast with these big bomb storms, which we had 0 of last year, the storm track this past winter was generally something like this, and different variations of, and a tremendous amount of snow was dropped across this region. It stayed cold, and so it froze, or stayed frozen. Snow is generally frozen, right? And then it thawed out, and we had this massive flood. And, we just didn't hear much about it. And if you had to put it into category, it was a Category 5 flood, and it got some coverage, as I mentioned, and then it just kind of fell off the grid. Well, in terms of what I do in trying to raise awareness of not only hurricanes, but other weather interests, we don't want that to happen. So keeping an eye on things like this, the flood outlook, going to be very important as we go forward. And, there's a lot of rivers up here that you can monitor, and I'll take a look at this from time to time. Here it is. This is from Laura Edwards, the climatologist. Imagine putting a soaking wet sponge in the freezer, taking it out, and then trying to pour water on it. The water is going to immediately run off, and this accurately describes our soils heading into winter and what we can expect in the spring. So the U.S. precipitation outlook going into the future here does not bode well for the northern tier states there, and we need to look at this very closely. Ice jams, long-term soil damage, etc., and then widespread flooding that can impact cattle. And this impacts people, their livelihoods, their ability to, support the community. The weather as a whole affects us all, even beyond hurricanes. I know that that's what I'm focused on generally, but as we get more and more connected via social media, etc., I think as a geographer, and that is my degree, that's my discipline, that it is up to me to spread this awareness of high impact weather events. So I'll be on that just like I would be if we saw the potential of a big hurricane season coming. The potential for big impact, lower 48. I mean, look, let's look at it another way. If you want to be completely capitalistic about it, what have I done with my YouTube channel and my support? I've grown it. How? Because I put these videos together, people share them, people like them, they subscribe, and I grow. I grow because I put out hopefully relevant and decent information. Without you on that side of the screen, I don't exist, and so it's only beneficial to me. This is what I'm talking about. If you want to just say, hey, just from a very selfish perspective, I need you. So I want to make sure that you are well educated, and therefore my audience will continue to grow. It is the opposite of the cigarette industry, which just kills off their audience. And I know, whatever, I'm diving into something completely out of my comfort zone, but it is the truth. The more safe that I can make you and the more weather aware you are, then the better chance you'll be around to be a part of what I'm doing. And it helps to allow me to have a career. So it's beneficial to us all. It's a win-win situation. So yes, we will stay focused on hurricanes, no doubt, but we will expand and get into more big impact weather events with a high degree of attention placed on education and awareness, that we understand and not just fear what we're facing. This clickbait, crazy world of attention-grabbing headlines, I'm not going to be about that. I've never have been, and we're not going to go down that road. Instead, we're going to be calm, collectively increase our knowledge base, and go from there. All right? There you have it. That is it for me for today. As always, I do appreciate you tuning in, whether it's from a laptop, a phone, a tablet, a TV, or your Tesla. And yes, you can watch these videos in your Tesla from what I understand. Pretty cool. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.